Hello, and welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. Each episode, we talk about a particular topic in the life of a professor. Ruth is a visiting professor at a large university in Ireland, and Claire is an associate professor at a primarily undergraduate university in Northern California. The purpose of our podcast is reflection, so we bring something we think is working and something we're working on to discuss. Welcome to the Professor Podcast with Ruth and Claire. I'm Claire.
And I'm Ruth. And today we are doing our holiday review. So we are going to do a series of 3 episodes where we select an old podcast episode to chat about. But this week we're going to do Claire's pick, and I have no idea what she's going to pick. I'm very excited to hear what she has selected for our holiday review episode.
So I have picked episode 121, The Urge to Appear Busy.
Ooh, okay, that's cool. Wow, okay, cool.
I was wondering if it was going to happen to be one that you picked or not. But anyway.
No, I know. I was actually like, oh my God, what's going to happen if she's picked my own? That's super cool. Okay, tell me why.
Okay, so I was going back through our old episodes trying to choose. So the idea here is that we're picking one of our favorite episodes from the past and reviewing it and thinking about whether how it feels relevant to us today. So The Urge to Appear Busy, we're talking about. We had this joke about you feel like you need to pick up a clipboard and walk around and show that you're doing things and getting things done. And I just was really appreciating the reminder that I don't like to be busy. And so why would appearing busy be a goal of mine? And of course, it's this social thing of feeling like it'll show your importance or something. But when I think about what I actually want to do, I want to be calm. I want to be confident. I want to be intentionally doing what I want to do. And none of that is being busy. And so just that reminder, I don't like to be busy. So I will resist the urge to appear busy and instead do what I want to do.
That's so, and I'm just glad you're even bringing it up now, and it's reminding me now, because it's like, it's not necessarily an internal urge. Like, it feels like it's an external pressure.
Yes.
That there's this kind of competitive, who's the busiest and who's the most important. And, and I think I remember talking about like just the fear that people won't take me seriously. Do you know what I mean? And so, so that's a good one. Okay, I'm stoked you picked that one. And it's perfect for the holidays, right?
Oh, you're right.
Yeah.
So easy to get caught up in holiday stuff and next semester stuff and all of that at the same time. And just calm, do whatever you want to do. No external
I'm imagining
forces.
myself with like a festive clipboard being like stressed.
A festive clipboard, yeah.
Yeah. So put down the clipboard. Enjoy whatever holidays you're celebrating, and yes, don't appear busy.
I hope you enjoy reviewing The Urge to Appear Busy with us. So, we are talking about appearing busy, or the pressure to seem busy. What do you have to say about that, Ruth?
So I think, like we sort of talked a lot through the frame of like essentialism, and I think I had this epiphany the other day that like a lot of my resistance about that is how I appear to other people. Do you know what I mean?
That you might not appear busy enough if you're being really picky about what you work on. Okay.
We used to always have a joke when I was in undergrad that like if you just had a clipboard in work, like you could get away with anything. You know what I mean? Like you could just seem like you were
walking around.
Totally, just cruising around writing in your clipboard, like anyone would be fooled into thinking you were like on top of things. And so, there's such a... and like you had it, when you're a student and people are like doing competitive, like, well, I was up till 3 a.m. Like just there's so much projecting and performing. And it's so stressful. And I'm very susceptible. So I also, this is a bit of a side story, sorry, but my eldest daughter, when we were doing homeschool, was constantly like, every single other person has done everything they're supposed to do, and I am the only one. And I would be like, what? Like, that is not what I get when I eavesdrop on your Zoom meetings. But like, and I am so susceptible to that. Do you know what I mean? Like, I believe everyone when they say they were up till 5 a.m. and that's the best way to prepare for an exam or whatever it was. So
yeah, sure. And that's fascinating because there does become this little competition of like, well, if you're really dedicated, you would have been up till 5 a.m. studying. But then just recently I was talking with this really on the ball student, double major, tons of classes, really good grades. And I was like, what's your strategy? And she was saying she stops working at 8:30 every night. She's dedicated during the day to getting all the things done, but then she stops and doesn't go late. And I was like, that makes sense. So it's just, I don't know. I feel like that fits in perfectly with this.
Totally.
There's like this weird competition of who can show their dedication the most, but actually the better way to go about it is not going down that path, you know?
Totally. And like, so, do you know what I start with?
Go ahead.
What's working for me is like I really believe being present at the task. And like, we've definitely talked about it plenty on here, coming to the conclusion that one thing at a time is the best way to do things, and like dedicating yourself to, like, you know what I mean? Like, I really do believe that. And like, I really believe that, like, if a student comes to talk to me, no matter how tempting it is, I'm not going to sneakily write emails while they're talking to me, or like, do you know what I mean? And like,
it's so tempting, but I agree, that's not the way to go.
Oh my God, yeah. But like, and you know, like, being really present is super important. And the other thing that kind of has worked for me in reassuring me about all this stuff, it sounds so stupid, but like, getting tenure really helped, because I think there was a big part of me that's like, no one thinks I'm serious, I don't have a clipboard, like, everyone thinks I'm just like wasting all my time and like, you know, all that stuff, and no one's going to really think. And then like, so getting that validation, even though it's completely external, and I wish I could do it for myself, but I can't, but that was really helpful, that like, okay, just doing it this way is really, like, it is going to turn out well in the end. Do you know what I mean?
That's great. It's like validation in the way you were doing it, because you got tenure and
Totally.
it worked out. But also, I mean, having tenure is supposed to let you be free to do things the way you want to do it, even if it maybe doesn't look like it's the most productive way from the outside. Like, you're trying this wacky research thing or whatever, but you maybe are trying this wacky essentialism thing, but you've already proven that you can do it.
Right. And so, cool. Like, I think that was a really helpful data point, that like, you don't necessarily, because like your student, like, I don't work all weekend, and I don't work in the evening. Like, I do a bit more now, but especially when the kids were little, I did not work in the evenings. And I feel like I was really effective when I was in work, but I felt like, you know, I definitely felt like there was a few eyebrows when you're leaving at like 5, or, you know what I mean? And so, it made me super anxious that I wasn't painting a picture of like being super effective, and
when really, if you were to look at your work output, yours was probably just as effective as anyone else's, but the metrics that sometimes go around are staying there till 8 p.m. or whatever. Totally. That's really interesting. So yeah, I love that.
So what about you? What's working for you?
Yeah, this was an interesting one, because I've got I couldn't decide which one was working and which one was working on.
Okay, I like this.
But what I ended up deciding was working was, kind of what you're saying. Realizing, like, I don't want to feel busy. I don't want to feel, I mean, you know, there's maybe some kind of busy where it's like, oh, you go to this fun thing and that fun thing, and you're feeling like you're on top of it and can do well. That's fine. I'm into that. But like, having lots of things that you're doing can be okay. But if it switches a little bit into overwhelm, or like feeling like you've got too many things, of course I don't want to do that. And so the urge to appear busy for this like metric that maybe people are judging you on is actually detrimental to my happiness and my productivity. And so realizing that, yeah, essentialism is actually making me more productive and happier, is just helpful to remember that. So
this is blowing my mind. Yeah. I think because for me, I'm like, whoa, like, I hadn't even thought, like, well, how do I define busy? And to me, it's that overwhelmed feeling you're talking about.
Right.
Rather than, like, because you have days where you have to hustle and get stuff done, and it can feel good.
And that can be fine. That can be totally fine.
That's super
interesting. Like, I love sometimes, exactly. Like, sometimes, you print off your things and you go to lab and you teach lab, and then you do this other thing and you're like, boom, boom, boom. That's great. But it's when, like, you feel like you need to also be doing this other thing, but you're already doing this one thing, and you don't actually have time to do this thing, but you need to do the thing. That's not okay. So it's really not too many things on the calendar. Well, I mean, it is if there's too many things on the calendar. But if it's, I don't know, just being active is fine.
That's
feeling
so
like you have
interesting,
too much to do is not fine.
Yeah, we all mean the same thing by busy, but now that you've said it, I'm like, oh, because that's totally, like, to me, it's like being pulled in all the different directions, and that whole thing of like working on something but thinking like, oh my God, I should be doing this other thing, or
exactly,
you know,
Or like I do this all the time, and it's like exactly what Essentialism tells you not to do. But it's like, I feel like I have to do these 5 things, and I don't have time to do any of them. And they're like, that's no fun, and that's not productive.
It's not possible, but you're like,
exactly.
I should still do it somehow.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So realizing that giving the appearance of being busy is actually not what I want to do is helpful in resisting this urge, you know?
Yes, completely.
That I actually want to be peacefully doing one thing at a time. Like, I'm going to spend the next half an hour in the copy room because I'm going to copy this thing, and I'm not worried about rushing to the next thing, and that's what I want to do. So I don't need to be running around with copy papers flying behind me to give this illusion of busyness, or to feel like I'd rather not have that illusion, you know?
Yes.
Well, illusion's not quite the right word. I'd rather not be in that state, so I'm not going to try to present that state either, you know?
Yeah, totally. And like, it's weird because when you kind of find yourself like, who are the people you feel drawn to, or like, and it's not the person trailing copy paper behind them, and it's, yeah.
Exactly. That's a great point. When you think about the people who do portray their busyness, my impression is not, wow, look at all that stuff they're getting done. I'm like, oh man, they look kind of overwhelmed, and I wish they could take some time to sit down and I don't know, relax, you know, or get their mind in order, do one thing at a time. Exactly.
Or, and like, I don't want to annoy this person because they have plenty, like, I don't want to bring them my thing I need to talk to them about because they're too busy, or for sure.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So interesting. So what are you working on?
Yeah. Just like, I don't, like, I'm still so anxious that, like, you know, and it's different into different environments too, right? But like, when you're in with a bunch of people who maybe are like so busy all the time, and you just feel like I think I told you this ages ago, that I had like a meeting. I was part of this group after I did a new faculty workshop, and we were talking, and someone was like, you know what, I'm just going to do it. I'm going to start taking one of the weekend days off. And I was like, I never work weekends. And like, this man got super mad at me, and he was like, had this assumption that like, oh, just because you have kids, like, you think other people should have to do your work. And I was like, no, like, I get my work done, I just don't work weekends. And so like, I still get that anxiety that people are going to have these metrics, right, that like are not, you know, accurate measurements of whether I'm doing what I need to do. But there's that. And then like, the other thing is that students, so like, when I was a student, I was like, wow, that person's so busy, that's so cool, you know what I mean? And so sometimes I definitely have had students come and talk to me, and they're like, oh, well, I can ask you this thing because like so and so is just really busy, so they don't have time. And I remember a student who I barely knew in my first job came in and was like, oh, can you help me with this math homework problem? And I was like, well, I can try, but like, you know, and I was like, why don't you ask your math professor? And they were like, oh no, they're way too busy for this kind of thing. And I was like, what am I, chopped liver then? Like, but you know,
and that's actually the math professor's job, and I'm, you know, yada.
So I think, you know, but then I was remembering, I was talking to someone, and they were reminding, like, my favorite professor as an undergrad was just this phenomenon. Like, he was just incredibly successful and amazing, and he just, anytime you talk to him, he just acted like he had all the time in the world to talk to you. Like, he was just like, do tell, like, what is this? And you're like, looking back, I'm like, what on earth? Like, he had so many things happening, but he would always make time and act like he had time to talk to you. And so I know, like, in my heart of hearts, that's what I would like to emulate. But then you sometimes still, I need my clipboard. Do you know what I mean?
I totally understand. I mean, like, thinking about this guy who was judging you for not working on the weekend, surely that's actually reflecting his own insecurity. He's like working up to taking a day off, and here you are already taking both weekend days off, and he's feeling, you know, it says more about him than it does about you. He's maybe judging you, but that's because of him. So I don't know. That's one thought. And my other thought is about these students. Yeah, so okay, they're getting this different perception that maybe you wish that they would be perceiving you as just as busy as this other guy. and therefore, appreciating that you're putting the time in to talking to them. And this person, this math professor should be putting the time in to teaching their students. And so so maybe I don't know, I feel like completely understandably, we're getting this reaction. We want the students to see it differently, but again, it's just how they're seeing it. And so, yeah, if we want to be this person who always shows having plenty of time and do tell, and yeah, I want to be that person. And okay, so maybe it comes at the cost of whoever we're talking to not understanding that we are doing lots of things, but maybe that's okay.
Right, and it's so funny, like when you said the metrics thing, but it really is whose lens you're using. Because I remember hearing something on the radio, and like it was a little bit like glib about life in Scandinavian countries, you know what I mean? But it was someone talking about they had lived there for a year, and they felt like the work culture there was, if you said like, oh, I worked all weekend, people would be like what's wrong with you? Like, why can't you get your work done in a normal time? And just how different that is, and it is funny, like we think these things are universal facts, like, well, it's just more work, and it really is just a lens of who's like measuring whatever.
That's so true.
So yeah,
that's a lovely point. I like that.
So tell me, what are you working on?
Well, it's really kind of the same thing you're talking about. I have these two examples where students told me that they had suddenly realized I was doing more than they thought I was doing, and I felt very validated. And I kind of don't want to feel validated, because I'm not. I don't know. Well, so the two examples are, I guess she was a research student, but in this particular case, she was a student assistant helping me with preparing labs for my instrumental analysis class. And she said, after she'd been doing that for a while, she said something like, wow, it's really cool to see all this behind the scenes stuff and all this stuff that you do to get our labs ready for us. And I just really appreciate that you do all that.
Oh.
And that felt really validating, because I do a lot of work to get the labs ready. And it was nice that she saw that. And it showed that she hadn't seen that before, and now she saw it. And then the other example is a student. He was also a research student, and I usually coordinate the safety quizzes for all of our laboratory classes. So whoever, anybody who's taking a laboratory class takes this safety quiz to make sure that they know all the ways that they need to be safe before taking the lab class. So I coordinate those quizzes, and there was somebody needed an extra quiz or something, and so word was going around the hallways, oh, where's Claire? And my research student said, oh, I'll go find Claire. And he said, oh, I didn't know you were doing the safety quizzes, like, you're doing a lot of things. So same thing. In both cases, I felt really like seen. Like, it's so cool that these two students are understanding that I'm doing a lot of things. So there's external validation from them, and that felt really good. But I feel like that's feeding my desire to appear busy. And so I need to, you know what I mean? Like I don't want this.
A little harsh on yourself, but first of all, I want to like salute you, because I think that's such a beautiful, like, I can't even think of words, sorry. It's such a beautiful description of how you run your class, that you're not like huffing and puffing in the door, still like crashing around filling in bottles or whatever, and like that people are just like, wow, this class just magically appears, and labs
true.
Just kind of sort themselves out, and it's really annoying sometimes that they don't necessarily know that. But I think it's really cool that like you don't bring that organizational stress into the classroom, so I think that's very cool. And I think but I think is it okay to like want to be seen? Because I'm like, is it Claire? Because I want to be seen.
Well, I want to be seen too. And I agree with you. I want to be seen, but it's very intentional. I don't want to bring that organizational stress to the lab. I want it to seem like it's just working.
Yeah.
I want it to seem very under control and thought out, and I don't know. I want it to come off as a well-oiled machine. And so even if I was just scrambling around half an hour before, that's not what I'm going to show to the students. And so that is very intentional. And yeah.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying, and I think, do you feel like it's the thin end of the wedge, and next thing you're going to be going around being like, look at all I do, like to all the students, just stopping random students on the corridor.
Yeah, looking. I don't know. Yeah, I mean, I guess I want to be like this person you were describing who always has time for you and is not showing, doesn't, I don't want to feel the need to show people that I'm doing these 5 things. I want to do the things that I want to do the way I want to do them, and I don't want to need this external validation, Okay,
I think there's 2 relevant parameters here, though. One is that you have a different relationship with these students. Like, they're each students that you have, like, a research relation, you know what I mean? So, like, they're beyond the classroom a little bit. So I think there's that. And then 2, you weren't showcasing. You weren't getting the clipboard and like, look at me, like with your clipboard. Like it was just, I know the way that's like our warning about whether we're going to like fall into looking for approval is whether you have a clipboard or not. But you know what I mean? So I think just having a happenstance where someone is like, wow, check you out. And you're like, oh, okay, yeah, check me out.
You're right.
I think that's completely different. And I think it is a testament to how much, like, everyone I've talked to about your teaching always talks about that you're just super calm and like organized and stuff just goes really smoothly. And like, I think that's such a magical thing for students. I think, like I was harping on a few episodes ago about like the hill I'm willing to die on is like organization is the most important thing about teaching. But I think it's a stress issue for students. Do you know what I mean? And I think you do a beautiful job of that.
Oh, thank you so much.
Yeah. And I think, but yeah, it's okay. Like if someone happened to peep behind the curtain and be like, woo, you know.
You're right. Yeah. And I still do appreciate that these 2 students said these nice things. It still made me feel good. I'm merely saying that I don't want to accidentally like, go down, like, I don't want this to be the tip of the wedge where I'm like, exactly.
Yeah, I totally, but it's hard because like, we want the validation. Do you know what I mean? But,
and it is really nice to be seen and acknowledged. And I think my takeaway from all this, it may seem like appearing busy for hopefully the acknowledgement is like the opposite of essentialism. And I guess what I'm trying to say is I think we can get just as much acknowledgement from essentialism as from being busy, maybe more, because with essentialism we would be actually doing the things we want to do very intentionally, hopefully making better progress on them. The goal is not the acknowledgement, but if it was, I don't think we have to worry that we're going to lose that by going with essentialism.
Totally. And I think like I do have to just come back to even like the data point of, sure, like you don't seem that busy and you still got tenure. You know what I mean? So like just stuff like that to remind myself. But sometimes if you, and like I think the other thing to remember is like I can't do that. Do you know? Like so there's times we're teaching physics and I'm like, should I try and like project more confidence and like I'm Captain Physics or whatever? And it doesn't really matter whether I should because I can't. Authentic, you know what I mean? Like I cannot maintain that. And I think it's the same thing with the busyness thing. Like I don't think I would be effective.
I don't want to be one of those people that feels the need to look busy all the time. That doesn't seem like what I want to be doing. So
no, true.
Yeah.
Okay, we're okay.
We're okay.
Yeah. Thanks a million, Claire.
Thank you, Ruth. Thank you for joining us on this special holiday review episode, where we look back on some of our favorite episodes of the past. We're delighted to have you as a listener, and we'd love to hear from you about any professor things you're thinking about, episode topic suggestions, or anything else that you'd like to share. You can reach us at contactprofessorpodcast@gmail.com. If you'd like to support the podcast, the best way is to spread the word about it. Share it with your colleagues or write a review wherever you listen. Happy holidays!